Hello, welcome to the CUNY Teacher Education webinar series. Today's webinar is focused on getting certified in New York State, and we're going to specifically look at initial teacher certification requirements. Before we begin, I'm going to go over some housekeeping details, so you may want a pen and paper to take some notes. First of all, my name is Jennifer Case. I work at CUNY's Office of Academic Affairs, and I'll be the presenter for today's webinar. I'm also joined by my colleagues, Angelita Alvarado Santos and Ashley Thompson, who will be moderating the webinar. If you're having any sort of technical difficulties with the WebEx platform, you are more than welcome to listen along through the phone lines today. We also have the deck archived on our CUNY Teacher Education website if you would like to follow along that way. All of the phone lines will be muted for today's webinar to minimize background noise, but you can submit questions through the chat feature on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll take all questions at the end of the webinar, and we expect that today's webinar will run for approximately 15 minutes. After today's webinar, the deck and recording will be archived at our Teacher Education Student Resource page. You can access it by going to www.cuny.edu/teachered. So to begin, we're going to focus on initial certification requirements. And we're talking specifically today about candidates who apply for certification after completing a state-approved teacher preparation program, such as one offered by a CUNY School of Education. There are other routes to certification, such as the New York City Teaching Fellows, and we will talk about resources for finding those certification requirements. But on today's webinar, we're going to be specifically looking at candidates who come through our preparation program. The main requirements for certification begin with the completion of a teacher preparation program. You'll need to complete the courses and field experience that are part of an approved program. After you complete the program, your school will recommend you for certification to New York State. You will also need to pass New York State's test for teacher certification. You'll need to complete required training workshops, and you will need to get fingerprinted. Finally, you'll apply for certification through the New York State Education Department's TEACH system, which can be found on their website. Your teaching certificate will not be issued until you have met all of the certification requirements. There are now 4 certification exams that are required if you're applying for teaching certification. These exams, beginning on May 1st, 2014, are required for anyone applying for initial teaching certification. They are the Academic Literacy Skills Test, the Educating All Students Test, the EdTPA, which is a performance assessment, and the Content Specialty Test. In addition to being successful on all 4 certification exams, you will also need to go through required workshops or seminars. In New York State, all teacher candidates are required to have training in child abuse identification, school violence prevention, and the new Dignity for All Students Act. You'll want to check with your program, as many of them will offer workshops or courses that cover this material. However, the DASA workshop is a new requirement, and so it may require signing up for an outside workshop or a separate training from your coursework. You'll want to check with your program to see how DASA training is handled at your school. If you're applying for certification in students with disabilities or speech and language disabilities, you will also need to complete training in autism awareness. So again, you'll want to check with your program to see if they offer that training in the form of a separate workshop or through embedded coursework. You should receive a certificate of completion for each workshop or seminar that you attend. You'll want to be sure to hold on to those for your records in case there are any questions that come up as New York State is processing your application. Everyone applying for certification in New York State will need to be fingerprinted before they're issued a teaching certificate. If you have been fingerprinted previously for employment at CUNY or a city department, this does not mean that the state has a record of your fingerprints, and you will likely need them processed separately through NYSID. NYSID's fingerprint processing from start to finish website will tell you all of the steps that are required to get your fingerprints cleared for certification. There is a fee of $91.50, which is transferred to the State Education Department for a state and national criminal background check. But depending on where you go to get fingerprinted, the organization doing the fingerprinting may charge an additional fee. It can take anywhere from 12 to 16 weeks for your fingerprints to clear and be processed through the background check organizations. So you'll want to be sure that you plan for that amount of time when you're applying for certification. Finally, you'll want to apply for certification through New York State's TEACH system. Through the TEACH system, you can create an account, complete an application for certification, and submit any payments that are necessary. In talking to candidates who have gone through the certification process and to other CUNY certification offices, we did come across a number of questions that frequently come up when candidates are applying for certification. So we wanted to be sure that we address some of those on today's webinar. The question that comes up most often is how to find out about certification requirements. Because New York State has so many different pathways to certification, and because they offer so many different certificates, you'll want to make sure that you're looking for the information that applies specifically to you. So to begin, you can go to NYSID's Learn How to Get Certified webpage, which includes information on certification pathways and the steps to certification. If you are not going through an approved teacher preparation program, such as participating in Teach for America or the New York City Teaching Fellows, this is the best place for you to start, as there may be some different requirements for your approved pathway. You can also use New York State Certification Requirements webpage to learn about the requirements for the specific certificate that you are interested in. It's also important to make sure that you check this website, as that gives you the most accurate and up-to-date information. Certification requirements do change with new state regulations and policies, and there have been numerous certification changes in the last year. So you'll want to make sure that you're looking at the state information and following the most accurate list of certification requirements. Candidates also have questions about the cost for getting certified. If you're applying through an approved preparation pathway, there is an application fee of $50 per certificate. So if, for example, you are applying for both childhood education and special education certification, you'll pay $50 for each of those certificates. If you're applying through a different pathway, the certification fee may vary. Other costs for certification include the fingerprint processing fee, any costs associated with the required workshops, and the cost of registering for the new certification exams. Finally, many candidates want to know how long it will take to receive their teaching certificate. The first thing that's important to note is that New York State is no longer printing time-limited certificates, such as those for initial certification, which means you will not receive a paper copy of your certificate. Instead, your certification will be verified through the TEACH system. You can monitor the status of your application by logging into your TEACH account. Once your certification is processed, it will appear in your TEACH account system. That is also how school districts will verify your certification when they're looking to hire you. If you are interested in getting a copy of a paper certificate, that option is available to you through the TEACH account. However, there is a $50 fee for this service. If you have additional questions on certification, one of the best places to start is with your school's certification office. They'll have specific information on your program requirements and their suggestions for applying for certification. There's also the TEACH system, which has your specific requirements and all of your account information. There's information on the New York State Teacher Certification exams on the NYSE website, which includes information on how to register for the exams and preparation materials. And finally, New York State's Teacher Certification website includes information on all of the certification requirements, as well as frequently asked questions that come in and are responded to by the state. At this time, we're going to remain on the line for just a minute or two in case there are additional questions that people would like to submit. If you are reviewing this webinar through our recording, you can also email us through our Teacher Education email address, which is teacher.education@cuny.edu. Thank you so much for signing in and participating in today's webinar on teacher certification.